So thanks everybody for coming. So we're going to do part two of something we started on the 20th of October, so about a month ago, a little bit less. And we're just kind of going to go through some of the finer points of our version 9 shipment that we got at the beginning of October. So this is me. I think everybody knows me by now, but you can reach me if you got questions at one of the following methods. Little housekeeping there. As always, you're muted. So if you want to say something, just put a question in the question box or just raise your hand with the raise your hand icon thing, and then we'll try to get your questions answered. So today is going to be a lot of interaction here because, like I said, I don't actually have any slides or anything like that. So we're going really straight into the demo part of the exercise here. So as we talked about, it was available the first week in October, and a few things have popped up since then. So let's take a look at some things that I've been playing with in the past month or so. Hang on one second. I need to take care of somebody. Anyway, as I was saying, a couple interesting things that I've been playing with this week. So, sorry, that is not what I wanted. Let me drag this over here. Okay, you know what? That is not going to work. Hang on one second. I apologize. Put this back over there. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. Basically, I have a 23-inch monitor and a 12-inch monitor, and it's kind of hard to figure out what the heck is going on there. So there we go. Okay, let me get that out of the way. Okay, so one of the things that I was playing with this is the multi-select option set. So how many people? I can see a show of hands. How many people have actually played with the multi-select option set yet? A few of you. Okay. Well, let's go create one. Default solution. Let's go to, how about we're going to put one on contact. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Okay. So you add that's just like you would add any other type of field, and what we're doing here is we're just going to add a new option, multi-select. So let's just call it interest, and set the type to multi-select option set instead of option set. We also we have the ability to actually use an existing one, which is kind of interesting. So this would be a global multi-select option set, which is kind of cool. So let's just do a standard one right now. Ken asked, I'm going to demo how the multi-select data is organized in the database. No, Ken, I only work with CRM Online most of the day, so I have no clue how it's stored in the database. But if you got any ideas, you tell me and we'll cover it. How about that? So I have no idea how it's actually stored. Okay, so you add your option sets just like you would normally. So let's say fishing. Okay, so that's enough interest for me. So I'm going to save and close that. Rodney Stewart says it's a delimited string. That's kind of what it looked like to me, because I think it actually stores it as a string the way it looks. So anyway, so I've got that added. Let's go add it to a form real quick. Contact. So I'm going to modify the contact form. Oops. Okay. So I've got it added there just to the main section there. I'm going to go add it to the main view 2 active contacts. I don't know what hardware they moved the trials to, but this is downright snappy. So I mentioned that. Okay, so let's go open a contact and see what happens. Change the view to active contacts. Open up Adrian. And we have an interest here. So what happens is, now when you click on it, you click on the drop down there, and we can select all of them, or we can just select several, and it puts it in this. Now, so basically, when it first gets into it, it's kind of like in the, it's almost like an edit mode. So what you see is it separates the different items by a semicolon. Okay, so that's how it looks. So I'm going to save that. And if I go back to all contacts, you can see here, if I expand it a bit, we have our interest there, same way as it was displayed on the form. If we go to Advanced Find, we can actually look at the values just like we had it before. So even though it may be storing them as a delimited string, or it appears to store them as a delimited string, what we're actually able to search on is each individual items of the option set. And there we go. Okay, so not too much of a difference. So back a few years ago, we had a couple of different solutions. The guys, Javier Vargas, that works for I can't remember the company name now, but he and another colleague created a solution that allowed you to do that. And what they did is they had a secondary hidden field that would actually keep track of the options, just like what we're seeing now. So Ryan brings up a good question. What's the pros and cons of global versus local? We've intended to use global to ensure ease of mapping to other entities, future-proofing. Is local faster? Ryan, I have seen zero performance difference on anything. So in all honesty, like I created a local one just because this is a temporary thing. I create globals for everything these days, strictly because there's just too much of a probability of it not working the way you would like, because you've got different things. Like I've got a customer and they'd made some customizations themselves before they got me involved, and I had the same option set on 3 or 4 entities. I can't remember. One of them or 2 of them, they had created locals, and then I created a global. And then what happened was the data all of a sudden started not matching up. We couldn't figure out why. So I finally ran my snapshot tool and dumped all the data for the option sets out. And what I found was when they had inputted the data, they had swapped two labels, and it was a pain in the butt to swap them back. And because the data was already recorded, and the problem is we couldn't change the data, we had to change the label, and we couldn't just swap the label because it would make the data invalid. So again, the way you get around that is you always create globals. Like I said, I've never seen any kind of performance difference to that. If anybody else has, I'd love to hear them, but I have seen nothing ever. Yeah, Ryan asked another question. Any tips on merging an existing separate yes/no fields into a single multi-select option set? Workflow versus export and import, re-import? Man, I have no idea. That's a good question. Um, how would you do that? You're probably just going to have to. I would probably do a workflow or some kind of batch update. Re-importing means probably you're manually doing something, so it's just easier to do it programmatically one way or the other. Ken ask, can the existing option set be converted to a multi-select option set? I'm assuming the answer is no, Ken, because this is a data type, and data types can't be changed. Now, that being said, Daryl Labar has this really cool tool in the XRM toolbox to swap data types. I don't know if it would work with that. Is Daryl online today? I don't see Daryl. No, Daryl. Let me check with him and find out if that's possible. I think, Ken, the answer is no. Sean asks, what is the advanced five? Is that an and or an or clause for the option set? It's going to be an or clause. Option sets, well, sorry. It's a good question. Option sets are singular. Yeah, I think it's still or, because I did a query. That query I did was for one or the other, and it showed us one. Narav asks, in advanced find, can you show how we can have other comparison options like equal or contains, something like that? Yeah, let's see. So basically, the way that would work is you could do, contains data, it's very simple, contains values. This is interesting. So this is not equal. So what this does is it's very similar to an equal sign, and it's looking for the actual values themselves. So what this is going to be looking at is so I'm making a very broad assumption here since I have tested it out. I'm making a broad assumption that when it says values, it's specifically talking about the numerical value that's stored in the database, which could be different than your string. So that probably kind of warrants a little bit more testing. Some of these things, quite honestly, we're going to get into are very version 1.0. I'll be perfectly honest, and they are not as robust as I would have expected there. So. Bill, I just answered that question. That's what we did in advanced find. How does SQL Server store the data? I have no idea how it stores it, other than if it's a delimited string. Yeah, contains values. Yeah, that works too. Let's see what else we got here. Can you use a multi-select option set in a business rule? That is a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I do not know. I haven't played with it that much. They haven't updated business rules, to my knowledge, with anything substantial. So I would expect that if it is, it's a fluke, because they would have to specifically go and add stuff for that. Can I bring it fetch something else for advanced find? Yes, I can bring it to fetch XML. So that's a good question. Let's look for this. Thanks, Matthew. Okay, open it up. So this is the search by value. So it's looking for the interest that contains value. So that is a new fetch XML operator. I do not recall seeing that ever before. I'll have to go look at the SDK documentation. So that's looking for the numerical value. Let's change it back to equals. which is doing it. What's interesting about that, you notice when I flip back and forth between equals and contains values, it does not erase the values we had set here. So either they're compatible or this is just a weird thing. So let me go look at this one. Same thing. Equals and contains values looks like they're the same thing, except for the fact there's an N operator. So for this discussion purpose, it looks like checking for if it's in a group or it contains values to be the same thing. Okay, what else we got here? Cole asks, does it have events on the form? Dude, this is just a field, so nothing's different about it. So can you create dependency fields? Yeah, I'm sure you could, but you're going to have to pull the data out. Rav asked the question of the day, which is, when's version 9 going to be available on premises? I do not own a crystal ball. I wouldn't use it if I had one because it's going to be wrong. So I have no absolute clue when that's going to show up. None at all. So, but I know people want it. So I don't know what the holdup is, to be quite honest. So, like I said, your guess is as good as mine. I would imagine that they've just got a lot to do to package it all up. Is my thing there. Okay. So, yep, everybody's asking the same question. Ryan says, can you show us update multi-select value in a workflow? I can try. That's a good question. Sorry. Come on. Well, let's see. How about the answer is no? How about that? I do not see that field at all. It's not where it should be. Right there. It should be right below the address. It's contact, right? Yeah. So I guess the answer is you don't. Unless I just totally, absolutely missed it. It's all address stuff. Yeah. Yep. So that's a good question. So I guess that we don't update it, Ryan. So anyway, so yeah, so that's a good question there. So anyway, okay, let's keep moving here. So let's see, turn those questions here. You guys were asking if I actually customized the contact entity. I have one on the account. Was that where I was? Yeah, I was on contact. Wasn't I? Yeah, I put one on the account. No, I put it on contact. So you try to make me crazy here. So it's not a far trip. Okay, what else we got here before we move on to something different? Okay, there's a lot of questions here. We're not going to be able to get through all these today, so I'll write all these down and we'll try to get them answered later on. That's a good question. Okay, so let's go back to advanced find. So we've got one interesting operator that we have now, which is the not in. So let's look for accounts and then go to related contacts. Right? Yeah. And basically does not contain data. Okay. Well, let me set this to active. Status to active. Okay, $100 question. Who can tell me what this is going to do? Sorry there, hang on a second. I lost my question window somewhere. Questions, nope. Sorry about that. There it is. Okay. Yep, that's it. So what this one will do is it will actually search for all active accounts who do not have contacts. Let's see if we got anything out there. So again, this is the infamous not in query that we've been waiting for I don't know, 100 years. Okay. So the idea behind this is you have to select a related entity. So that's why I scrolled all the way down to the bottom. So that's under, sorry, get it out of the way. Tell you, having one monitor and doing this is not productive, let me tell you. So you scroll down to the related record section here. That's already picked one. Okay. And then basically you have two options. Contains data, does not contain data. And all this means is, are there records that exist or are there records that do not exist? So the contains data would be an in query. So show me things that this data is inside of this other query. Secondary thing is not in, which is that does not contain data. And the idea behind this is, as you can see from the message, we cannot change or we cannot add conditions to this. This is one single query for the related entity, so we can't do subqueries within that. To say, for instance, show me accounts that are active that have you know what? I did the wrong one. It's contracts. I should be contacts. Contact. There we go. Doesn't matter. Oh, that one we can do. Okay. That is interesting. So it seems some of them we cannot search for. So this one we could actually search for, say, things that are, where's the state? Where they are equals, oh, sorry. Yeah, does not contain data. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Back to where I was. So yeah, so does not contain data does not let you filter it because, again, there's nothing to filter on. So the idea here is you select your related entity and then show stuff. So find me accounts without contacts, customers with no orders, customers with no quotes, customers no opportunities, things like that. That's where all that would come into play. Ben, yes, the recordings are always available. Yeah, and Chet said use contract instead of contact. I do that about 50% of the time. I've only been working with this product for about 12 years, so one day it will actually get in there. But it doesn't matter which one it is. So, about that. Okay, best of sales, no contacts. And others have no contracts, which is good to know. So again, the idea here is you can look for things that exist or things that don't exist in a group of related entities. So that's a cool thing. You could do this prior to this. starting in, I think, one version of 2015, but you literally had to programmatically write your fetch.xml, you had to write your fetch.xml statement and programmatically shove it into the user user query table, user view. Do you say query? Yeah, the user query table. So you could do it, but you had that, but you literally had to push it in there programmatically. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Okay, somebody mentioned it earlier. We now have flows as part of this. This is really, really odd. Okay, I've got to admit this is something that's kind of strange. So let's go back to accounts. Let's talk about flows. So here's my accounts. So I can see my flows. I have something called a Dynamics 365 button, which is what I created earlier when I was playing around with it. So let's go create a new one. Okay. So the first thing it does is it makes sure I'm connected to the right place. So this is my current login for this instance here, which will go away in about 2 days. Now, very first thing, I'll tell you what, let me get a show of hands. How many people have actually written a flow? Can you raise your hand? Okay. A few of you? Okay. So here's the deal. These flows created from within the Dynamics 365 environment are very, very specific. As you can see, it starts off with one and evidently only one thing, which is the record when a record is selected. Now, I could be wrong. Again, I haven't done a tremendous amount of research on this, but this is not exactly what it appears to be. In other words, it's not when you select the record, it's not going to, in other words, when you put the check mark by the record, it's not going to magically fire off the flow. I haven't seen it do that, but I haven't verified it does not do that. So when the record is selected, then you add a new step. You can add an action or a condition. So if we wanted to, for instance, create something. Now, the irritating thing, it does not put Dynamics 365 at the top of the list, so we have to expand that and scroll down to the D's and get here. And then I can do the following functions or actions. So I can create a new record, delete, get, list records, update a record, etc. So what if I say I wanted to create a new record? Here's the organization, which is October 1. That's my organization name. The entity name, I can pick, let's create a contact. What do I want to do? Tell you what, let's do something simple like a task. I won't get overly complicated with this. Okay. Couple things here. So you can rename it. You can add a comment. You can change the settings. We can't configure the run after because it's not part of what it does. And then here are your connections, and finally you can delete it. Now, why I'm pointing that out and talking is it had to go out and pull out the metadata for the task entity. So they had time to fit. So that was what, 20 seconds, 10, 20 seconds. So when you're working with this, anytime you work with flow, it's going to have to go out and pull data back and forth. So just kind of keep that in mind. So so there, we can enter a due date. I can do dynamic content. Timestamp. Okay, duration owner, I'm going to make that. Try that one. Did that work? I think so. Okay, and that's what I need. So I'm going to save that. So all we're doing is when the record is selected, we're going to create a new task. Okay. Already got the name is wrong, so I need to rename it. Oops. Okay, so we've got that created. Okay, let me go back to my questions and see if people correct me for anything I did wrong. Okay. So let's go back to active accounts, and I'm going to click to records. Go to flow, see my flows. You know what? Sorry about that. Okay. Create tasks. And what that will do is it will actually ask me to log in again, make sure the information is correct, and then it will run those again. So run that. Created records, record selected, still waiting, 15 seconds. Wonder if it's going to work since I'm not sure I correct the value. But anyway, so this is how this works. So basically what you do is you create your flow, and then how it fires off is you select the records, and then you actually select the flow to run against those selected records. So has anyone seen anything different with that? Anyway. So Rob, I was saying, if you've added custom fields to your task form with the flow show those, yes, it should show those. That's why I did a query kind of live, more or less, strictly because it was trying to get the data. So, and Ken points out so many clicks. Yeah, flow's a lot of clicks. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of power behind it, but you have to put in the time to do it. And again, once you kind of start doing it, it's like anything. If you compare it to the workflow editor, you got clicks there too because you screw up and you're kind of screwed. So. Anyway, so I think there's a lot of potential in there, but again, we just have to figure out how to use it. Like I said, this is a very oh, clicks to sorry, Ken, too many clicks to execute. Yes, I was rather shocked, quite honestly. Like I said, there's a lot of very 1.0 type stuff in here, more so than I expected. So when I was going through it, I'm like, kind of like you, I'm like, is this thing ever going to end? So anyway, so a lot of potential here. If you guys haven't spent any time in Flow, take a look at it, see what it does. As you saw when I went to the Dynamics 365 connector, there are hundreds of connectors out there that connect from everything. And so there's a lot of potential here. In the last webinar, somebody asked, is Flow going to replace the workflows that we have now? My basic guess is no, but I wouldn't see them putting a lot of work into that engine because they have to redo it because it's quite quite a substantial investment that people, both Microsoft and customers, have made into the workflow engine. And all the workflows. I mean, there are some companies that have hundreds that do all kinds of magic behind the scenes. So it's really just a kind of figure out what is the best way to do that. So again, just a guess on my part. Have no idea what the path of the product team is, but I can see that the flow is so easy to work with that yeah. So the tool says, can Flow connect to Nav and AX? As far as I know, yes. As long as there's a connector, you can connect to it. It doesn't matter. That's the idea. So Flow will take things from one place and do something in other places. So that's the idea of Flow. Okay. So another thing I was playing around with here, I don't think it would make a big difference to anybody. I just want to show it to you. So look at here. Here is a CRM hub. How many people have heard of that? Anybody? Nobody? Rob says, please tell us. I'm like, no, I don't think I feel like it. No, you have to figure it out yourself. Just kidding. So yeah, so I was, where was I? I was in here. I was in my admin portal. I was doing something. I can't remember what I was doing. I'm not going to read my current password. And yes, I just showed you how to bypass security, so don't tell anybody. Okay, so got my instance up. Go to solutions. I was just bragging on how fast this was. And what do we have here? CRM Hub. Very fascinating. So here's what it looks like to me the CRM Hub is. Just a guess. Like I said, don't know what it is. Never heard of it before. Just happened to see it this morning. Okay. How many people remember the business edition? Okay. Doesn't this really kind of look like business edition except for the fact it doesn't have opportunities? So it looks like it's just accounts and contacts. So like I said, I don't have any idea what else is in here. So activities, dashboards, accounts, and contacts. That's it. So like I said, just kind of interesting. The data is exactly what you'd expect. So it uses the new interface that all the hubs use. Anyway, so yeah, so this is interesting. So yeah, so I don't know what the intended purpose is. Like I said, it could be the Rodney says a CRM hub related to security roles. No, it's not actually. I don't know what it is. I think it's only got four things in it, so it can't be that big a deal. So I'm not sure what it was, if it was an accident that it actually got us installed, but that is it. Okay. Okay, let's go look at some. How much time we got? 20 minutes. Okay, let's go look at one more thing, and then we're going to jump back to some other stuff here. Okay, so I'm going to go to system settings. So settings, administration, system settings. Couple cool things in here. Allow text wrapping of form field labels and values. Defaults to yes. And the idea here is with prior versions of CRM, what happened, or Dynamics 365, what happened is if it was a label, it just kind of faded out toward the right as it got close to the data entry field. Well, now you can wrap those labels. So that's like a really big cool thing. So default save option, that's still the same. The label thing, like I said, I think it's pretty cool. Search is the same, telephony, welcome screen, legacy form rendering, default app name, new stuff. Session timeout. So the session timeout is actually how long you would like a user to remain logged in before they get prompted for reauthentication. The default is 1,440 minutes, which is that's 24 hours, right? And they will get a warning at 20 minutes before this happens. There is also an inactivity thing that you can actually turn on, that if they are inactive for X number of minutes, it will automatically log them out. So this is these two things are security features. Okay. So haven't played with those. I understand the use cases. I'm not sure if it'd be of benefit to anybody else on the call, but I think this is pretty interesting. You know, there are some situations that you want to lock people down. This last one's kind of interesting. Load default static content from the content delivery network. Okay, how many people know what a content delivery network is? Anybody? A few people, not that many. Okay, a content delivery network, or a CDN, is a network that puts the data as close to the customer as possible. The largest, I think, maybe besides Google, is Akamai. So what people will do is they will pay Akamai to load data. So this is what they call static content, so it can't change. So like videos or text files or PDFs, whatever pieces of data that don't change, you put it as close to the end customer as possible. So for instance, if you're in India and you're pulling data back from the United States, that's a pretty long trip. What if we can put the data in India so that you could actually pull the data from India back from India? So it's a very short trip. And what that does is it increases the performance of the database to the user, because it's like, oh, look at that, it popped right up. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what they call static content. So static content are things that don't change. Images don't change. Some pieces of text don't change. Some layouts of things don't change. So static content is basically things that are non-database driven. You know, most of CRM is actually database driven, and they don't change. So what they're doing here is they're actually loading it within the Azure CDN. And what happens is when they do that, it will allow for faster response times because it is cached as close to the user physically as possible. And what that allows us to do again is make it appear to be faster. Now, again, they can't do it with dynamic content. So database stuff, they can't do it because it changes all the time. But this is a way for us to speed up the online performance, both real and imagined, strictly because it delivers to the end user data faster. Okay. Ken asks, why would you not want to load it? Is there a dollar effect? I have heard of nothing, Ken. So, and it's going to be a small amount of data, quite honestly. If you have on premises and you want to look, if you go into the CRM website, the thing's just CRM web, there's a static folder, and it's just you're going to find images and stuff. It's a very small amount of content. So even if they did charge you for it, it would be small. So again, Ron asked, what CDN today would you want in CRM? This has nothing to do with anything you would ever touch, Ron. This is 100% inside the system. So it's mainly images and things like that. That's it. And this is not an on-premise thing. This is strictly online. Again, you have zero. Your total control of this feature ends with this question, yes or no. End of story. So you have no control over anything besides that answer. Okay? Well, that's that. Okay, so that's it for the features today. We're about out of time. I'm about to have a visitor. So let's go talk about deprecation. Blah blah blah. Okay, how many people know about what is going to be changing with the with upcoming versions? How many people have seen the deprecation list? Show of hands. A couple of you? Okay. More if you need to, be quite honest. Okay. This is very important to us. Okay. So here's the deal. If I'll put this in the, I'll put this as a show note and to the show that I'll put on the website, but also let me, yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. Okay. So if you just go look for what's new Dynamics version 9, there's some important changes. what's this? That's the official title. Important changes coming to Dynamics 365 customer engagement. That's the official product name. Okay, so here's what they're talking about. At some point in time in the near future, which could be anywhere between now and forever, they are going to remove parts of the product, and they're giving you a warning. So the last time they gave us a warning, it lasted a year and a half. So most of the time when they say we're going to deprecate in a future version, what they're talking about is the next major version. So in other words, we went from version 8.2 to 9.0. That's a major version. So the next version is version 10. Who knows when that's going to be, what if that will be the spring release or the fall release, or how that's going. Shh. Hang on one second, folks. Let me see what this is. Say hi, people. Hi. Hi, people. Hi, people. Okay, now go in there and play. I'll be done in about 10 minutes. Okay? Thank you. Okay, Graham. That was Graham. So here's what the deal is. So in the next major version, they are going to do some stuff. First thing they're going to do, and there will probably be dancing in the streets, is they're going to deprecate the Outlook client finally. So this is the fat client that we've had for forever. So you either love the Outlook client or you hate the Outlook client. I've never seen anybody that either is kind of in the middle. It's either good or bad. So the main problem with the Outlook client is it's very finicky, and because it is hard to write an Outlook add-in. Just end of story, it is. And they never get along with each other, which is what causes most of the problems. So the way that they are getting around this is they are creating the app for Outlook. You can download it right now. It fits inside of the Exchange. It runs on all the platforms, either Outlook Web Access or Outlook itself or Outlook on mobile. The problem is, at this point in time, we do not have a fully feature parity between the client and the app. So there are things that it just does not do, and it's not going to do for some period of time probably. Now, that being said, they do have a new version underway to match the July update that we got in October. It looks like it's being tested in Canada, believe it or not, at the Canadian Data Center. So if you're in Canada, you can probably get a copy of that. I don't have a feature list, quite honestly, of what they're doing with it, but that's about it. So that's the biggest thing coming. The other things like service scheduling, people haven't really used. Another big one that's going to cause us some issues is dialogues. Now, I've got exactly one customer who's ever used a dialogue. So that's going to be, for some people they use dialogues a lot. That's going to be a big kind of a pain factor. Where I think they're going to go with that is it says they're going to be replaced by the mobile task flows, which they are building into the unified interface. So we're going to have a dialogue-like thing happen. So that's good. Unknown as to how that's actually going to physically arise, but it's going to happen. Parature knowledge base, as you know, Parature was not deprecated. Basically, they stopped development on it and stopped shipping it. Stephen King says mobile task flows don't work at the moment as a replacement. I would not expect them to. Like I said, very version 1.0. Project Service Finder, don't even know what that is. Probably the PSA product. Contracts, contract line items, and contract templates are going to be gone. I have created brand new entities to replace those strictly because of the way they worked. Standard SLAs are going. Relationship roles are deprecated. Those were kind of replaced by connections quite some period of time ago. Mail merge has been replaced with templates, announcements nobody's used since I've ever been working with it, and a few other things. Okay, so those are the big things, and again, you'll find that on this page here. So go out there if you got any questions, go out there and take a look at that. So for the rest of us, now we've got a few minutes here. Here is some things that are going to cause us a bunch of pain at some point in depending on your circumstances in a major way. They are changing what appears to be 100% the JavaScript object model. So right now, the JavaScript object model is based off of an object called xrm.page, as you can see here. They're splitting out. The functionality is not disappearing. They're just moving it all over the place. So what they're doing is they are creating different kinds of things to fill a void that I guess they felt was in the model, so that we have parity between the different types of clients. So the web client, the mobile tablet client, etc. So evidently part of that was to redo stuff. So they're moving things around. There's a really it's not going to be a ginormous change. If you look at it, it's literally moving from one thing to the other. So again, nothing is really disappearing, and we're getting more new stuff. It's just the fact that what's happening is how you get to the things are changing. So at some point, we're going to have to rewrite all of our JavaScript. That's to some point. Now, again, this one they may keep around longer than some of the other features, strictly because of the sheer amount of disruption it would be. Because if they cut these things off, it will, your JavaScript will just start throwing errors everywhere. Okay. Cole asks, is there a custom code validator tool for this? I don't know of one. No one's mentioned it. I haven't looked, though, quite honestly. So if anybody else has seen one, I was thinking about adding this to my transformer JavaScript conversion tool, maybe. I don't know yet. I'll have to look at that, see if it's actually worth the time and trouble. It may not be. Maybe just do a search and replace and get it over with. But anyway, this is going to be the biggest thing that's going to happen to us. And it's one of those where we're just going to have to learn to live with it. That's all I got to say. So it's coming. They've kind of made, they're telling you about it. Could be a year, could be a year and a half, could be 2 years in advance. So this is the biggest change we're going to have to worry about, is this stuff here. So take a look at this. The new SDK shipped, if you didn't hear that. Now, this is a change that they threatened us with a couple years ago, and we, the MVP community, reacted very unpleasantly to this change, me being one of them. So they're no longer shipping the monolithic download for the SDK. So currently, prior to version 9, all of the SDKs for every version are uploaded on Microsoft.com/downloads. So you can download one from, I'm assuming 3, but 4, 2011, 2013, 2015, 2016, Dynamics 365, they're all up there. You download a zip file. There's a help file that has all the stuff in it. You got sample code and everything. They had an announcement, I guess it was last week, maybe a week before, I can't really remember, that said that this is where we're going to do going forward. It's no longer going to be called the SDK or Software Development Kit. It's going to be called the Developer Guide for Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement. So as you can see, it applies to version 9 online, and it has basically a starting point for all the documentation here. They're going to put the sample code either on the code.msdn.com or on GitHub, depending. I haven't actually dug around enough. I haven't really had time to figure out where everything is. I personally don't like this change, but I understand that basically they were just running into some resource constraints, and it was a pain in the butt to generate the help file and stuff. So by having it online, they have one place for it to be. So anyway, so this is a new place. It's still kind of structured the same as it was. If you look at this is the more or less the outline that you saw within the help file itself. The reason I did not like this, and maybe they've changed it, is when you searched MSDN, you found all versions of a thing, and sometimes it's very difficult to filter out what was on the specific version you were working on. If you look at my main work folder, I have about 15 folders that contain almost every version of the SDK that they've released from version 4 upwards, strictly because I just keep track of them, because sometimes they produce bugs. Anyway, so here is the what's new for developers. As you can see, they've got all these changes here. Connected Field Service Developer Guide. Where is my JavaScript? Security model, model mobile apps, programming reference, client API reference. That's what we're just talking about. Oh yeah, by the way, while we're here, remember there's a thing called unsupported code. If you see that, don't play with it, even though it's got some really, really cool stuff in it. That's internal, and it could go away very quickly. I have seen people do that. I have found Microsoft code doing this, and of course it didn't work with version 9 because they changed things. So here is the new object model, and just kind of starts off the stuff. So just kind of leads you down a path. So here's what it looks like now. XRM, device, encoding, navigation, panel, utility, web API. Okay. And like I said, this is some good stuff. You think about it, okay? The ability to capture audio or an image or a video or a barcode. I think that's really, really freaking cool. Really opens up the possibilities for what we can do. So anyway, so that's pretty much it. I know we're getting close to time here. I want to be respectful of that. So I really appreciate you hanging out today. Hope this was valuable to you. I'll have this uploaded to YouTube here shortly. And tool asks, any significant changes from mobile? Not yet. I've heard that they're making changes, but I have not heard of anything so far. But I think they're working on some changes they're going to do. Does anybody else have anything that they want to ask before we go? Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay, well, I will try and email everybody out when I get everything uploaded and stuff like that. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that, and then I will have it ready to go probably by Monday. So thanks a lot, and we will talk to you later.